Franklin joins the team of Lunchtime Live in half an hour.
Blair to see Queen, then call general election. Barry George, new evidence over Dando murder. Biggs back behind bars, his lawyers are to appeal. And Hatfield crash, rail tracks, catalogue of errors.
From ITN, the ITV Lunchtime News with John Suchet.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. In a moment, news from your area. First, in the next half hour, the Prime Minister will go to Buckingham Palace, ask the Queen to dissolve Parliament, then later announced what has been expected for the last month, that the general election will be on June the 7th. All the political parties say they're ready for the off. From Westminster, here's our political correspondent, John Ray.
The Prime Minister's wife leaving Downing Street this morning, but so far for the waiting media, not a glimpse of her husband. Key advisers like Alistair Campbell are with Mr Blair and parked outside the car that'll take him to the palace within the next few minutes, where he'll ask the Queen to dissolve Parliament, the official start of an election campaign.
We will compete for every single vote, and we will fight a positive campaign, setting out, of course, what we've done, but also recognising that there's a huge amount more to do.
After Mr Blair's audience with the Queen, this will be the timetable for the election. The date for polling is almost certain to be set for Thursday, June the 7th. There'll be a final Prime Minister's question time tomorrow, before Parliament is dissolved on Friday, with the parties then free to launch their manifestos.
Good morning. Good morning.
The Tories aren't waiting for the starting pistol to fire, countering Labour's promise to invest in education and health with their pledge to cut tax.
We certainly want to give back to the people who've been hit by Labour's stealth taxes some of the money that has been taken from them. And in particular to people who save, in particular to pensioners, in particular to married couples with young children.
The Liberal Democrats' battle bus is also on the move.
Oh, I think we should have fun.
Their leader relishing the spotlight the campaign will throw on his party and their promise to spend and tax with honesty.
What you see is what you get with us, and I think over the course of the next 4 weeks that will stand in quite some contrast to the other two parties.
Spotted in the back of William Hague's car this morning, newspaper predictions of another Labour landslide. But on one thing the parties do agree, the poll that counts is on June the 7th. John Ray, ITN, Westminster.
And we go to our political editor in Downing Street. John, we know he's about to go to the palace, Tony Blair, but there's something of an air of mystery about his announcement of the actual date.
That's it, there's always a slight air of mystery. That's the traditional part, I suppose, of the British Constitution. We know the Queen has to be asked, first of all, whether she will give permission for Parliament to be dissolved, and that means that all the MPs cease to become MPs. So that part is traditional. What is less traditional is that Mr Blair, after he's been to the palace, is going to have a short wait here, and then he's going to give his first speech at a school in South London. Now that is new, that is different, and that is very much Tony Blair and New Labour. It's mixing the traditional with something that just gives a bit more spice, a bit more politics to a very traditional scene.
Right, now at the end of our report we saw the newspaper in the back of William Hague's car predicting a win for Tony Blair. All the polls say that. Are we in for a dull 4 weeks?
Well, obviously that's up to all of us to make sure it's not dull. Elections are never really dull. Nobody knows quite what happens during the campaign. Politicians always make mistakes. They always get very tense. And on the night, it's extremely difficult to work out how many seats the parties will get. Last time, the Liberal Democrats did worse in terms of their overall vote from the time before, but they doubled the number of MPs. So the whole situation is still very, very tense for all the politicians and those involved, right up until the last minute, and we don't know what will be the big campaign issues, because once the public have voted to give a government a mandate, if that's what they do with Labour, then of course that sets the tone for the whole of Labour's second term. If that's what happens, it's not dull, it's in fact the vital part of politics.
All right, thank you, John. The trial of the man accused of murdering the TV presenter Jill Dando has been hearing new forensic evidence which the prosecution says links him to the crime. Lawyers claim a particle of firearms residue found on Barry George's clothing bears a close resemblance to material found on Jill Dando. It's also emerged George lied to police about his movements on the day of the murder. Shuli Ghosh is at the Old Bailey. Shuli, tell us first more about that forensic evidence.
Well, scientists tested samples taken from Jill Dando's hair. They found particles which included aluminium and barium, which they deemed to have come from the firing of a weapon against Jill Dando's head. They then tested a coat that had been taken from George's flat by police. On the right inside pocket, they found a single particle of a substance also containing aluminium and barium. Now, the scientists did a number of tests to check out whether that could have come from anything else, for example, a firework, but deemed that it hadn't. It had come from a weapon which had been fired. Moreover, X-ray spectrums of the particles found in both the coat and on Jill Dando's hair concluded that they were all very similar and could all have come from the firing of a bullet outside Gowan Avenue, which is, of course, where Jill Dando was shot dead.
Right, and saying all that, I understand, marked the end of the prosecution's opening statement. What happens now?
Of course, well, now we're into the main body of the evidence. We're hearing in the last 15 minutes, they were listening to a written statement by Nigel Dando, that's Jill Dando's older brother. Basically, it was detailing her birth, her upbringing, her schooling, her career, all those kind of background details. Now, what the prosecution barrister Orlando Pownall has said that he's going to take us through those early days of Jill Dando, take us through her career and take us through her movements in the week before the shooting and on the day of the shooting. He will then turn to Barry George, the defendant, and take us through his movements. And he says although there's no rational motive for why he should have killed her, he will produce evidence to show that he was the man responsible.
Thank you, Shuli. The great train robber, Ronnie Biggs, has spent his first night behind bars after 35 years on the run. He returned from Brazil yesterday on a plane chartered by The Sun, an act for which that newspaper is facing a Press Complaints Commission inquiry. His lawyers say they'll be appealing for him. Here's Philip Ray-Smith.
Here at Belmarsh Prison in southeast London, Ronnie Biggs is getting ready to taste his first prison lunch in 35 years. It's a harsh return to reality for the great train robber who spent his exile in Brazil. The 71-year-old touched down at RAF Northolt in North London yesterday morning. Inside the private jet chartered by a tabloid newspaper, there was a kiss for his son as the 71-year-old was arrested by the head of the flying squad.
You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand that? Time? No.
Frail and barely able to speak, it's believed Biggs wanted to come back to Britain for medical treatment, having spent his share of the £2.6 million haul long ago. Ronnie Biggs' return was organised and paid for by The Sun newspaper. It now faces an investigation by the Press Complaints Commission. Paying convicted criminals isn't allowed by the PCC unless it's in the public interest. The Sun's likely to argue its actions got the fugitive home to face justice.
I don't see how you can argue that bringing an on-the-run criminal back after 35 years floating around is not the prevention of crime. So I should be surprised if they find against The Sun, and I think The Sun will be too.
The train robber's son Michael is due to explain this afternoon why his father chose to come back from Brazil. Philip Ray-Smith, ITN.
Doctors have removed a bullet lodged in the back of a pensioner who was caught up in a gangland shooting in Manchester. The 70-year-old woman was walking through the south of the city at about 2:30 yesterday afternoon when she was shot. Police believe she was the unwitting victim of gang violence. A man has been arrested. Just a week after another price rise at the pumps, the oil giant BP Amoco has announced massive profits. It made £3 billion profit in the first quarter of this year, equivalent to more than £1 million every hour. That's sure to provoke an angry reaction from motorists. The price of a litre of petrol at a BP garage went up only last week. Thousands of mourners took to the streets in Gaza for the funeral of a 4-month-old baby, the youngest victim of the cycle of violence that's jeopardized the Middle East peace process. The Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon again apologized for her death, but put the blame for the violence at the feet of Yasser Arafat. Kevin Dunn reports.
In the refugee camp of Deir al-Bala in the Gaza Strip, they buried the youngest victim of 7 months of violence. 4-month-old Iman Hedjo, a baby girl who died after being hit by shrapnel from an Israeli shell. The killing of the innocent, Palestinians said, would stain Israel's international standing. In Jerusalem, Prime Minister Ariel Sharon publicly apologized for the baby's death, but said Yasser Arafat's Palestinian Authority also had a responsibility in bringing the violence to an end.
We have a burning desire to reach peace. No doubt that we believe that the Palestinian Authority must fight terrorism. They made commitment to fight violence. Violence will not get them anywhere.
But there is little sign of an end to the violence, in which young and old alike are caught up. In the last 24 hours, an Israeli settler has been shot dead and another Palestinian policeman killed. The latest, but certainly not the last, victims of the region's conflict. Kevin Dunn, ITN.
We're taking a break now, but there's more to come on the lunchtime news, including the catalogue of errors that led to Hatfield. And live coverage as Tony Blair heads for the palace. Those stories and news from your area when we come back.
The record company loves you. I love you. Everyone is gonna love you. You are gonna be massive.
TNT, keep it real.
Hello, want a low-cost loan at your convenience? Whatever you want £800 to £15,000 for, call Lombard Direct on 0800 2 15,000.
Our rates reflect your circumstances and our typical APR is just 9.7%.
I've just got us a great deal on a loan.
For an unsecured personal loan of £800 to £15,000, just call Lombard Direct now on 0800 2 15,000.
Burning. Acid heartburn. Gaviscon Advance.
Gaviscon Advance, also available in new peppermint flavour.
Coating, cooling, soothing. That's better.
Gaviscon Advance, our advanced answer to acid heartburn.
4 ordinary men.
We're a professional unit.
One incredible story.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is amazing.
The Dish.
Brian, you and your flipping DIY. Shut up. Shut up!
Can't you save money without waking up your neighbours? Stop drilling and pick up the phone. Let the AA sort out your home insurance instead of your mortgage lender, and you could save up to 100 quid. Go on, drill through a pipe.
Call 0800 444 777.
Right here. Right, boys. Oh, chips. You never told me you're making chips.
Hey, from the microwave, man.
No. Anyway, microwave chips come in a box. I don't see no box. Where's the box? All right.
Mega microchips from McCain. You'll never believe they came from the microwave.
1 mega microchip box.
Oh, yeah. Look around. There you come in a box.
No chips, no game.
New mega microchips from McCain.
Get ready. Tonight, I'm gonna make this a night to remember. Get ready, oh baby, tonight, I'm gonna make this a night to remember.
Don't waste a second getting down to Gala Bingo. We pay out over £18 million every week. So join today and you could be a winner tomorrow.
Hey, hello, girls. Oh, champagne. What's the occasion?
Kerry just got engaged.
Oh, congratulations, Kerry. Are you having a sit-down, do?
We've only just...
You see, I like a finger buffet myself. Now, how about some nice open sandwiches? Some tiger prawns, some avocado, and lashings of thick, creamy Hellmann's mayonnaise. Ooh, fantastic.
Do you remember our wedding day?
Oh, yeah. Those vol au vents were brilliant.
People who like food love Hellmann's.
Welcome back to the Lunchtime News. Our top story, Tony Blair is about to leave Downing Street to ask the Queen to dissolve Parliament. A report into the Hatfield rail crash has uncovered a catalogue of errors and missed opportunities that it says contributed to the disaster in which 4 people died. The report's most damning finding was that Railtrack was aware of problems with that particular stretch of track more than a year earlier than they had previously admitted. Here's Neil Connery.
The unpublished draft report by the industry body Rail Safety says Railtrack knew of track problems in the Hatfield area in 1998. That's 1 year before the company says it did and 2 years before the crash which killed 4 people. Last October, a cracked rail broke into 300 pieces, derailing a GNER London to Leeds train. It's claimed the report reveals a series of errors, ignorance and management failure by rail bosses and engineers. The track inspector employed by the contractor Balfour Beatty admitted to failing to check the rails properly. It's claimed he did the inspections from a ditch at the side of the track, which meant he couldn't see the top of the rail clearly. Ultrasonic tests flagged up a serious problem but weren't acted upon.
We've been arguing as a union for a long time. Our members, of course, who are involved in the inspection and maintenance and renewals of the track have been complaining about the lack of renewals and the lack of maintenance that has been going on. And of course you'll always get that when you've got Railtrack and the engineering companies, whether it's renewals or maintenance, that really there is no proper dialogue between the two of them.
Railtrack says it can't discuss the claims because an internal report is still being drawn up. The police investigation is also continuing, with charges of corporate manslaughter against the company still a possibility. Neil Connery, ITN.
The Prime Minister is due to leave Downing Street any minute to see the Queen, then call the general election for June the 7th. We'll be back with live coverage in a moment, but first to ITV newsrooms around the country.
Thanks, John. The lunchtime news now from Meridian. As you may have just heard on ITN, the Prime Minister Tony Blair is expected to announce the date of the general election at any moment. Well, we can cross to our political editor Alan Clark at Westminster, who can tell us what the election campaign will mean for the South.
Yes, Mr Blair is on his way to see the Queen. At last the suspense is over. Now we know when the general election will be. The big day is June the 7th. The starting gun will be fired officially when Parliament is dissolved. So who'll be running the country in the next Parliament? Well, if you believe the opinion polls, you'd be very brave to bet against Labour. But here in our region, the Tories should remain the #1 party. Indeed, they're hoping to regain some seats lost to the other parties. They'll be having their eyes very firmly on the 2 Reading seats currently held by Labour and the Lib Dem seats of Winchester, Romsey and Eastleigh. So what about the issues? Well, Labour will be campaigning on its management of the economy. They'll be talking about investment, that's the new word for spending, investment in public services such as health and education, and also expect some very strong personal attacks on William Hague. The Conservatives, well, they'll be talking about tax cuts, rural issues and asylum. And as for the Liberal Democrats, well, they won't be talking about tax cuts, they'll be talking about improving public services by, if necessary, increasing taxes. 2 other factors could be very crucial in determining the outcome of this election: turnout, some people expect it to be very low, and tactical voting. Well, no doubt about the big story dominating the news now, but don't worry, it'll all be over in 4 weeks' time.
Thanks, Alan. Workers at a high-tech firm in Berkshire are waiting to hear if their jobs are safe after the company announced it was shedding thousands of posts worldwide. 3Com, which is based at Winnersh near Reading, is cutting the jobs as part of an international shake-up. Alex Rossi reports.
It's the latest in a line of high-profile job casualties for the Thames Valley. 3Com, which is based in America, is slashing 30% of its workforce across the globe because of a slowdown in the US economy and a slump in technology markets. The company makes computer hardware and software for businesses and employs around 100 people at its European headquarters in Winnersh. Workers here won't know whether they're to be axed for at least 6 weeks.
There's certainly a distraction, there's certainly a concern, as it would be for anyone. What 3Com are trying to do is to manage that with as much sensitivity as we possibly can.
3Com is struggling to make a profit. In fact, in the last 3 months, it's made losses of £150 million. The company now says it has to cut costs. It's workers here that could suffer. Alex Rossi in Winnersh for Meridian News.
Talks to resolve a dispute on South West trains resume later today. If they fail, there could be another 24-hour strike on Friday. Staff are unhappy about a number of new working conditions and having to wear name badges and red waistcoats. Proposals to build an incinerator in Guildford will be discussed in the House of Commons today. Backbench MPs will look at the issues surrounding the controversial plans. The Thames Waste Management Group wants a licence to construct and run the site at Slyfield. Scientific experts are due to talk about the effects of genetically modified crops in Berkshire today. Trials of GM maize are taking place at a site in Shinfield. The tests were approved by the government despite local opposition. A public meeting is planned for tonight. An English opera singer has entertained a packed crowd at the Medeski Stadium in Reading, but he could soon find himself performing in front of nearly 100,000 football fans in Italy as well. Keith Malone reports.
The majestic voice of opera singer Lawrence Robinson on Saturday, putting some raw emotion into the hearts of 20,000 fans just before Reading's home match against Bournemouth. A famous operatic solo familiar to football fans the world over.
Absolutely fantastic. No other feeling in the world like it. It's wonderful. Football audiences, I think, are absolutely brilliant.
This song, Nessun Dorma, was made famous as a football anthem by Pavarotti during the World Cup in Italy nearly 12 years ago. And on Saturday, it helped inspire Reading to a late equaliser in a dramatic 3-3 draw. But Lawrence now has a chance to sing in front of the opera-loving people of Italy. If Leeds United can win their European Champions League semi-final away to Valencia tonight, then they'll ask him to sing at the final in Milan's world-famous San Siro Stadium.
Normally Italians like to think that opera is their art and don't want any other nationalities encroaching upon it, but it'll be interesting to see how they react to me.
So, having heard of the expression, taking coals to Newcastle, Lawrence Robinson hopes he can now create a new one, taking opera to the Italians. Keith Malone for Meridian News.
Time now for the weather with Carl Tyler.
Good afternoon. It was a very pleasant bank holiday and it's not too bad a day. We've got a good deal of sunshine around, just some patchy fair weather, cloud drifting around. But we've got a bit of a hiccup coming along tomorrow. In the weather, I think we see a good deal of cloud. We may even see some light showers, but then the weather's going to settle down for the rest of the week, and we could see temperatures into the 70s by the time we get to the weekend. Have a look at the satellite picture. You can see the high pressure still with us. We've got a good deal of sunshine over us at the moment. That high will drift a little bit further north, allowing this band of cloud to come drifting up and through us tomorrow, producing 1 or 2 light showers. So for the rest of the afternoon, a very pleasant afternoon, a good deal of sunshine around, just some patchy fair with the cloud drifting around. Temperatures, well, they could reach 17, that's 63 degrees Fahrenheit, but we're still stuck with this light northeasterly wind. Now, overnight tonight will be dry. We're going to see clear skies to start with, but cloud will start to move into the east of the region as we come through to dawn. Lowest temperatures at 4:39. And then tomorrow morning, I think a reasonably bright start. We could even see a little bit of sunshine in the west, but that cloud will increase as we go through the morning. During the afternoon, there'll be a scattering of generally light showers around. They'll die out, and we'll see some sunshine coming along to end the day. Temperatures tomorrow perhaps down a touch, but still not too bad at 16. That's 63 degrees Fahrenheit, but this time with a moderate northeasterly wind. That's all for me now. Good afternoon.
Thanks for that, Carl. Just time to tell you what's coming up on Meridian tonight at 6. Sailing into the history books, the biggest ever cruise ship to carry fare-paying passengers from Britain goes on show in Southampton. That's all at 6. There will be more from us just after 3 o'clock, and you can keep up to date on our website at meridiantv.com. But now, back to John Suchet at ITN in London.
Hello again. Within the last few minutes, Tony Blair has left Downing Street on his way to see the Queen and set the election date. It was tight timing. Mr. Blair had been told the Queen had just got back from Sandringham to Buckingham Palace. He then left for the palace to ask her to dissolve Parliament. And in Downing Street, our political editor, John Sargent. So, John, we're holding our breath for the date. When will we know for sure?
Well, we know the date, it's June the 7th, and we've really known that for the past month, because when Mr. Blair postponed the local elections and announced a new date for those, we all knew at the time, those of us who were being briefed behind the scenes, that this meant the general election too would come on June the 7th. But officially we will hear from Mr. Blair this afternoon when he visits a school in South London. So, as I said earlier in the programme, we get the traditional bit first of all, and then this afternoon politics starts in earnest.
And John, 4 weeks of campaigning for what all the opinion polls say is going to be another clear win for Labour. Is it going to be a dull campaign?
No, I don't think it's going to be a dull campaign. I think all campaigns are interesting and they're all important. It's very easy for people to say, oh, this is what we've all heard about. But of course, elections are quite different from normal politics. There he is arriving now at Buckingham Palace. And it's quite different in an election because they've got to fight for their arguments, they've got to make their point, and the people decide.
Well, the tourists there outside Buckingham Palace, we're seeing the scenes just then, John. He's actually seeing the Queen. What exactly does she now have to do in a nutshell?
Well, she's got to accept his request for Parliament to be dissolved. It's rather a clumsy phrase, but it means essentially that this Parliament, this first Parliament of Mr. Blair's government, is over. MPs cease being MPs. They go to the country to see who can come back in the next Parliament.
Good. Thanks very much, John. And the scene there live at Buckingham Palace as the Prime Minister asks the Queen to dissolve Parliament, and then later this afternoon we will get a formal announcement of the general election on June the 7th. And that's the news. Next from ITN, the ITV Evening News at 6:30 with no doubt that date fully confirmed. Till tomorrow, bye-bye.